best thing that had ever happened to Emma and Sophie almost became the biggest mistake of their lives. Just a few months earlier, both women had felt trapped. Dead-end jobs, tiny apartments, a future that seemed to be shrinking instead of growing. Then everything changed. A prestigious company offered them positions in a beautiful coastal city, a fresh start, a second chance, a better life. What neither woman knew was that within days of arriving, they would accidentally fall for the wrong brothers. And somehow, that mistake would change everything. The moving truck had barely stopped before Sophie jumped out. She practically bounced onto the sidewalk. "Come on." She grabbed a box before the movers could even lower the ramp. Emma sighed. Nothing about this surprised her. For as long as she could remember, Sophie had rushed into everything. New ideas, new opportunities, new cities. Meanwhile, Emma carefully checked a moving checklist in her hands for the third time. Boxes, documents, keys, addresses. Everything needed to be accounted for. If Sophie was chaos, Emma was structure. If Sophie followed excitement, Emma followed plans. Somehow, they had remained best friends for years. The apartment building stood in front of them, modern, elegant, far nicer than either woman had expected. For a moment, both simply stared. They had actually done it. After years of struggling, they were finally starting over. Then Sophie immediately ruined the moment. One of her boxes slipped from her arms. Books crashed onto the sidewalk. A lamp rolled into the street. Without thinking, Sophie chased after it. Emma's eyes widened. A cyclist sped around the corner. Sophie froze. The cyclist swerved. The lamp survived. Sophie lifted it above her head like a championship trophy. Emma buried her face in her hands. Even the movers laughed. The disaster had officially begun. While Emma reorganized the scattered boxes, Sophie wandered toward the entrance. A few minutes later, she stepped into the elevator, then immediately regretted it. The elevator stopped. The lights flickered. Silence filled the small space. Sophie pressed every button she could find. Nothing happened. She pressed them again. Still nothing. Panic started creeping in. Then a calm voice spoke from behind her. "You know pressing them faster won't help." Sophie nearly screamed. A tall stranger stood in the corner, holding grocery bags. While she panicked, he remained completely relaxed. Within minutes, he opened a maintenance panel and restarted the elevator. The door slid open. Problem solved. Sophie stared at him. The man seemed calm, responsible, and completely in control. She immediately decided he must be the serious older brother in some wealthy family. The responsible one. The mature one. The stranger looked amused but never corrected her. His name was Lucas, and he was actually the younger brother. Meanwhile, outside, Emma continued carrying boxes into the building. Unlike Sophie, she was taking her time. Careful, focused, organized. Unfortunately, even plans sometimes failed. As she stepped onto a wet section of pavement, her foot slipped. The heavy box tilted forward. For one horrifying second, she thought she was going down with it. Strong hands caught both her and the box. Everything stopped. Emma blinked. The stranger holding her looked perfectly calm, as if preventing disasters was simply another item on his daily schedule. Embarrassment immediately warmed her face. Then the bottom of the box gave out completely. Photographs scattered across the sidewalk. Emma groaned. The stranger crouched beside her without hesitation. Together, they chased photographs before the wind could carry them away. Emma noticed something immediately. He was patient, kind, helpful. Naturally, she assumed he worked in maintenance. Why else would he spend so much time helping a stranger? The man smiled but never corrected her. His name was Ethan, and he owned half the building. As they gathered the last photographs, one picture caught his attention. It showed Emma and Sophie years earlier at their college graduation. Sophie was laughing at something outside the frame. Emma was trying unsuccessfully to keep her serious pose. Ethan smiled. The photo somehow explained everything. One woman created chaos. The other survived it. Before Emma could ask what was funny, Sophie suddenly appeared in the lobby carrying 3 grocery bags. One was ripped. Oranges rolled everywhere. A small child chased one. An elderly woman accidentally kicked another. Lucas appeared behind her trying and failing not to laugh. Within seconds, Ethan was helping gather oranges. Emma was apologizing to strangers. Sophie was laughing too hard to be useful. And Lucas seemed to be enjoying the entire disaster. For several minutes, complete chaos took over the lobby. Yet strangely, nobody seemed unhappy. Not Emma, not Sophie, not Ethan, not Lucas. When the last orange was finally recovered, everyone stood there smiling. The day had been ridiculous. The move had been exhausting. Nothing had gone according to plan, and yet it already felt like the beginning of something wonderful. Later that evening, Emma and Sophie collapsed onto the floor of their apartment surrounded by unopened boxes. Sophie couldn't stop talking about the handsome man from the elevator. Emma couldn't stop thinking about the man outside. Soon they were comparing stories, descriptions, details, assumptions. Without realizing it, they were already mixing things up. Names, personalities, roles. The confusion had begun, and neither woman had the slightest idea that the two strangers they met that day were about to That night, Emma and Sophie sat on the floor surrounded by unopened boxes, takeout containers, and enough cardboard to build a small village. For the first time in years, neither woman felt worried about tomorrow. The apartment was still a mess, but it was their mess. Emma immediately got to work. Within minutes, she had divided the room into sections. Essentials, work supplies, kitchen items, things to unpack later. She even wrote labels using a marker she somehow managed to find before anything else. Across the room, Sophie watched for several seconds before shaking her head. Emma could organize a natural disaster if given enough time. Meanwhile, Sophie had created what she proudly called a system. Unfortunately, nobody, including Sophie, understood how the system worked. 20 minutes later, she couldn't find her apartment keys, or her phone charger, or her left shoe. Emma eventually discovered the shoe inside the refrigerator. Neither woman could explain how it got there. The discovery triggered another round of laughter. Life suddenly felt lighter, hopeful, normal. While Emma carefully assembled a bookshelf using the instruction manual, Sophie decided instructions were merely suggestions. She ignored every page, skipped half the steps, and somehow assembled a dining chair backwards. When Emma pointed out, Sophie insisted it was modern art. Then she sat on it. The chair collapsed immediately. Emma laughed so hard she accidentally dropped a handful of screws. The evening continued in the same chaotic rhythm. At one point, Sophie plugged in a lamp and somehow turned off power to half the apartment. Emma spent 10 minutes fixing the breaker. At another point, Emma carefully folded every blanket in the apartment. 5 minutes later, Sophie used them to build what she called a victory fort. Neither could stop smiling. This was exactly what they had needed: a fresh start, a better life, a second chance. Later, while eating takeout on the floor, the conversation naturally drifted toward the men they had met. Emma spoke first. She talked about Ethan's patience, the way he had calmly helped collect her photographs, the way he never seemed rushed. Everything about him felt dependable. Sophie's eyes narrowed immediately. That wasn't the man she remembered hearing about earlier. When Sophie described Lucas, she focused on completely different things: his confidence, his humor, his ability to stay calm while she was trapped in an elevator, the way he somehow made stressful situations feel funny. The more they talked, the stranger things became. Descriptions overlapped. Stories blended together. Details started attaching themselves to the wrong person. At one point, Emma became convinced Ethan had rescued Sophie from the elevator. Meanwhile, Sophie somehow started believing Lucas was the man who helped collect the photographs. Neither noticed a mistake. The confusion quietly grew. Then Sophie's phone buzzed. A welcome email from work. Tomorrow would be their first official day. Emma immediately began planning. Schedules, commute times, breakfast, meeting notes. Sophie immediately wondered whether the office had good coffee or cute coworkers. Emma rolled her eyes. Sophie laughed. Neither realized that the two men they couldn't stop talking about were already becoming a much bigger part of their lives than either of them expected. And by this point, the identities of the brothers were already completely tangled in their minds. Reward, friendship, laughter, hope, growing romantic curiosity. The confusion becomes even bigger. Over the next few days, both women kept crossing paths with the brothers. Emma's interactions with Ethan felt surprisingly comfortable, natural, predictable in the best possible way. On their second day at work, a scheduling mistake threatened to ruin an important presentation. While several employees argued over what to do, Ethan quietly stepped in. Within minutes, he had identified the problem, rearranged the schedule, and prevented the entire situation from becoming a disaster. Emma couldn't help noticing how calm he remained under pressure. No panic, no drama, just solutions. She admired that, because she understood exactly how much work it took to stay organized when everyone else was losing control. For the rest of the day, she found herself thinking about him more often than she wanted to admit. Meanwhile, Sophie was having a completely different experience. Chaos seemed to follow her everywhere. One afternoon, she spilled coffee across her presentation 5 minutes before an important meeting. The disaster happened so fast, she simply stared at the brown stain spreading across the pages. Then Lucas appeared, holding a backup copy. Somehow he had anticipated exactly what might happen. Sophie's embarrassment lasted all of 3 seconds. Then she started laughing. Lucas laughed too. The crisis instantly became a joke. A few days later, Sophie accidentally entered the wrong conference room. She spent nearly 10 minutes participating in a meeting she wasn't supposed to attend before realizing nobody recognized her. By the time she escaped, Lucas was waiting outside, trying and failing not to laugh. Sophie's face turned bright red. Lucas nearly lost a battle against his amusement. The more ridiculous the situation became, the more fun they seemed to have together. Unlike Emma and Ethan's steady connection, Sophie and Lucas thrived on unpredictability. Every mistake became a memory. Every misunderstanding became a story. Every problem somehow brought them closer. Meanwhile, Emma's connection with Ethan continued growing in quieter ways. One evening, she stayed late to finish a project. Hours passed. The office slowly emptied. When she finally looked up from her desk, she discovered a fresh cup of coffee sitting beside her laptop. Still warm. No note. No explanation. She didn't need one. Through the glass wall of a nearby office, she spotted Ethan working on his own projects. A small smile appeared on her face. Across town, Sophie was experiencing a very different kind of evening. After taking a wrong turn while exploring the city, she somehow ended up at a street festival she hadn't known existed. 30 minutes later, Lucas found her there participating in a dance competition with complete strangers. She wasn't winning, but she was having the time of her life. The sight left Lucas smiling for the rest of the night. At the end of each day, Emma and Sophie shared everything. The stories, the confusion, the excitement, the growing attraction neither woman wanted to fully admit yet. Without realizing it, they continued attaching the wrong details to the wrong brother. The romantic confusion was becoming even more tangled, and neither of them had any idea how complicated things were about to become. Reward, growing attraction, trust, connection, romantic progress, friendship bonding, curiosity for what happens next. Emma and Sophie were convinced they finally had everything under control. They were wrong. After accidentally saving the wrong phone numbers under the wrong names, both women spent an entire week texting the wrong brother. Neither side realized it. By Friday evening, both dates had been arranged. Same restaurant, same time, neighboring tables. The disaster was already waiting for them. Emma noticed something was wrong first. The moment Lucas stood up to greet her, a small alarm bell rang inside her mind. The messages she had received all week didn't match the man standing in front of her. The personality felt different. The energy felt different. Emma smiled politely while mentally reviewing every conversation from the past 7 days. Something wasn't adding up. Across the restaurant, Sophie had the exact opposite reaction. She also noticed the inconsistency, then immediately decided not to worry about it. Whatever was happening seemed interesting. That was good enough for her. While Emma searched for answers, Sophie simply enjoyed the confusion. The evening became increasingly chaotic. Emma carefully analyzed every detail. Lucas liked different foods, used different expressions, had different habits. The evidence kept piling up. Meanwhile, Sophie accidentally made everything worse. At one point, she thanked Ethan for flowers he had never sent. A few minutes later, she referenced a joke from a conversation that had never happened. Ethan looked confused. Sophie looked confused. Then both started laughing. The confusion somehow made the evening more enjoyable. Across the room, Lucas noticed Emma quietly studying him, not in a suspicious way, in an investigative way. It amused him far more than it should have. Every answer he gave seemed to generate 3 new questions in Emma's mind. By dessert, she was practically conducting a silent investigation. Then things became dramatically worse. A waiter approached the tables, carrying a complimentary dessert. Moments later, another waiter arrived with champagne. Then a third employee appeared holding camera. Nobody understood what was happening until the restaurant manager stepped forward. With a huge smile, the restaurant had mistakenly assumed both couples were celebrating a double engagement. Before anyone could react, the announcement echoed across the dining room. Applause erupted everywhere. Several guests stood up to cheer. One elderly woman started crying. Emma nearly inhaled her drink. Lucas immediately reached across the table to steady her glass. Meanwhile, Sophie laughed so hard she accidentally knocked over a candle. Ethan caught it before it could hit the tablecloth. The entire restaurant interpreted the rescue as an incredibly romantic gesture. The applause became even louder. Emma wanted to disappear. Sophie wanted to know if there would be free cake. The brothers exchanged helpless looks. Neither understood how the evening had become such a disaster. Yet, somehow nobody wanted it to end. Because beneath all the confusion, the chemistry was real. The laughter was real. And for the first time in years, both women found themselves looking forward to whatever happened next. As the evening ended, Emma returned home with more questions and answers. Sophie returned home with absolutely no answers at all. And somehow, she was perfectly happy with that. Neither woman realized the romantic confusion had just become far more complicated. Reward, comedy, public embarrassment, protection, romantic chemistry, growing emotional attachment, curiosity for the next chapter. The brothers decided they needed answers. Unfortunately, they handled the situation in the worst possible way. Instead of simply asking questions, they quietly began competing. Neither of them planned to. It just happened. The first sign appeared on Monday morning. Emma arrived at work to find a perfectly prepared coffee waiting on her desk. Exactly the way she liked it. She immediately assumed it came from Ethan. 3 minutes later, Lucas appeared carrying her favorite pastry from a bakery across town. Emma stared at both gifts, then at Lucas, then at the coffee. Her brain immediately started searching for a logical explanation. Unfortunately, there wasn't one. Meanwhile, Sophie was having a completely different experience. She arrived late after accidentally boarding the wrong bus, then discovered someone had already solved the problem she had spent the entire morning worrying about. Lucas had helped. 5 minutes later, Ethan arrived with an even better solution. Sophie watched the exchange unfold. Unlike Emma, she made absolutely no effort to understand it. She simply enjoyed the attention. The competition quickly escalated. One afternoon, both brothers accidentally ordered lunch for the wrong women. Emma received 2 deliveries. Sophie's lunch never arrived. Half an hour later, she was stealing fries from Emma's plate while insisting it was compensation for emotional damages. The next day, things became even stranger. A bouquet of flowers arrived for Emma. A reservation confirmation arrived for Sophie. Both were intended for someone else. Neither woman understood what was happening. Emma began writing down details, patterns, timelines, possible explanations. By Wednesday, she had an entire page of notes. Sophie discovered the notes and laughed so hard she nearly fell off the couch. She nicknamed it the brother investigation. Emma was not amused, at least not initially. Meanwhile, the brothers were becoming increasingly frustrated. Every attempt to get closer to the right woman somehow ended with more confusion, more mistakes, more mixed signals, and somehow more feelings. One evening, Ethan arrived at the apartment building carrying a small toolbox after hearing Emma mention a broken cabinet door. 10 minutes later, Lucas appeared with replacement parts. Neither had known the other was coming. Emma watched the silent competition unfold. Sophie watched it too. The difference was obvious. Emma found the situation suspicious. Sophie found it hilarious. At one point, Emma quietly wondered whether wealthy men always behaved this strangely. Sophie immediately decided the answer didn't matter, because whatever was happening was the most entertaining thing that had happened all month. The rivalry continued. The confusion grew. And despite the constant mistakes, both women felt something unexpected happening. They were becoming genuinely attached, not to the gifts, not to the attention, but to the man behind them. Unfortunately, the identities of those men were still completely tangled. And with every passing day, the truth became harder to untangle. Reward, light jealousy, protective behavior, comedy, friendship, growing affection, increasing romantic attachment, curiosity for the next complication. Life continued improving in ways neither woman had imagined. For the first time in years, the future felt larger than their fears. Emma's success arrived exactly the way she would have predicted, one carefully planned step at a time. Weeks of organization, detailed reports, solved problems, reliable results. Her supervisors noticed. Her co-workers trusted her. When a complicated project suddenly fell apart 2 days before a major deadline, panic spread throughout the office. Emma immediately created a recovery plan. Schedules were reorganized, tasks were reassigned, problems were prioritized. Within hours, the project was back on track. The following week, she was called into a meeting. By the time she walked out, she had earned a promotion. Emma tried to stay calm, professional, composed, but the smile on her face lasted the entire day. Meanwhile, Sophie's success looked completely different. A last-minute marketing campaign had lost a key component hours before launch. Most people saw a disaster. Sophie saw an opportunity. Acting entirely on instinct, she improvised a replacement idea. Nobody expected it to work, including Sophie. The campaign became one of the company's biggest successes of the quarter. Her creativity attracted attention throughout the organization. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know who had created it. When the recognition arrived, Sophie looked almost as surprised as everyone else. That evening, the two friends celebrated together. Emma suggested a quiet dinner. Sophie somehow turned it into a rooftop party. Neither woman got her preferred celebration. They got both. The result was perfect. The laughter came easily. The future felt exciting. And for the first time in years, success didn't feel temporary. It felt real. Meanwhile, the brothers continued finding ways to become part of their lives. The day after Emma's promotion, Ethan quietly left a small congratulatory gift on her desk. Nothing extravagant, just a beautiful planner. Practical, useful, perfectly chosen. Emma immediately noticed how thoughtful it was. Across town, Lucas congratulated Sophie in a completely different way. He somehow convinced a street performer to announce her success to an entire crowd during lunch. Sophie's face turned bright red. Then she laughed until she could barely breathe. The attention embarrassed her, but secretly she loved it. As the weeks passed, their lives continued improving. Emma felt more confident. Sophie felt more inspired. The apartment slowly transformed into a real home. The friendships at work grew stronger. The romances grew deeper. And despite all the confusion surrounding the brothers, neither woman wanted the feeling to end. One evening, while reviewing her schedule for the week, Emma noticed something strange. Several details about Ethan still didn't make sense. At exactly the same moment, Sophie was telling Lucas a story that should have belonged to someone else entirely. Neither realized it, but the confusion was quietly growing. And the closer they became to the brothers, the harder the eventual truth would be to ignore. Reward, personal growth, professional success, friendship, romantic progress, emotional validation, hope for the future, curiosity for what comes next. Everything started falling apart during a wedding reception. Emma and Sophie attended as guests. The brothers attended as family members. For the first time, all four storylines collided in the same place. Disaster followed almost immediately. The confusion began before anyone reached the ballroom. A wedding planner approached Emma with a bright smile and handed her a guest packet reserved for Ethan's partner. Before Emma could explain the mistake, the planner disappeared into the crowd. 3 minutes later, a photographer pulled Sophie aside and started arranging her beside Lucas for what he called couple portraits. Sophie laughed. The photographer assumed her laughter was confirmation. The misunderstanding only grew. Inside the reception hall, relatives began arriving one after another. Each conversation created a new version of reality. One guest believed Emma was dating Ethan. Another insisted Sophie was engaged to Lucas. Someone else confidently claimed both couples were secretly planning weddings of their own. The story spread faster than anyone could correct them. Emma tried anyway. She explained, clarified, corrected, repeated herself. Every attempt somehow created even more confusion. The harder she worked to restore order, the worse the situation became. Meanwhile, Sophie found the entire thing hilarious. At first, she tried helping. Then she realized helping wasn't working. After that, she simply enjoyed the show. Watching Emma battle misinformation had become its own form of entertainment. The situation became even more ridiculous during dinner. A relative handed Emma a family photo album and asked which wedding venue she preferred. Another guest asked Sophie how long she and Lucas had been living together. Sophie's drink nearly came out through her nose. Across the table, Lucas looked equally shocked. Ethan wasn't doing much better. The brothers exchanged confused glances every few minutes. Neither understood how everyone had become so convinced. Then came the dance floor disaster. The DJ called for the happy couples. Nobody moved. The DJ repeated the invitation. The crowd started cheering. Still nobody moved. Then Sophie made a decision. A very Sophie decision. She grabbed Emma's wrist. Before Emma could protest, she was being pulled toward the dance floor. The crowd erupted. The brothers followed. Emma looked like someone being escorted toward a courtroom. Sophie looked like she had just won the lottery. The music started. The cheering grew louder. Unfortunately, things became even worse. During the dance, guests started taking photos. Dozens of them. Every image captured smiling faces, accidental chemistry, and moments that looked far more romantic than they actually were. At one point, Emma nearly stumbled while trying to avoid another awkward interaction. Ethan immediately steadied her. Several guests witnessed the moment. A collective wave of emotional sighs spread through the room. Across the floor, Sophie accidentally stepped on Lucas's shoe, then his foot, then somehow nearly collided with another couple. Lucas caught her before she could fall. The crowd loved that even more. By the end of the evening, nobody believed the official explanation anymore. The wedding guests had created their own version of the story, and they preferred it. As the reception finally ended, Emma left with a headache and at least 20 unanswered questions. Sophie left with sore feet and the best night she had experienced in months. Neither woman realized how dangerously close the truth was becoming, because for the first time, even the brothers had started questioning everything. Reward, massive comedy, public embarrassment, protection, romantic tension, friendship, growing emotional attachment, curiosity for the coming revelation. Block 8. The truth finally surfaces. After months of misunderstandings, the truth finally emerged, not through a dramatic confrontation, not through an argument, and not because anyone finally confessed. The truth surfaced the same way most of their problems had started, through complete and accidental chaos. It happened during a family charity event hosted by the brothers. By now, Emma and Sophie had become regular parts of their lives. The four of them arrived together, worked together, laughed together, and somehow still carried the same tangled assumptions that had followed them from the beginning. Emma was helping organize guest registration when she noticed something strange. A large welcome banner displayed the names of the event sponsors. She stopped walking, read the sign once, then twice. Her analytical mind immediately caught the inconsistency. Several details she had collected over the past few months suddenly connected, pieces of a puzzle she hadn't realized she was solving. Meanwhile, across the venue, Sophie was having a very different experience. She had accidentally wandered into a private planning meeting while looking for coffee. Nobody questioned her presence, so she stayed. 5 minutes later, she learned information she absolutely wasn't supposed to know yet. The discovery made her eyes widen. Then she accidentally knocked over a stack of folders. The folders scattered everywhere. Several people rushed to help. Among the documents were company profiles, family records, business ownership charts, and suddenly the entire truth became impossible to ignore. Emma found Ethan. Sophie found Lucas. The brothers found each other. For a brief moment, all four simply stared. The silence felt enormous. Months of confusion, months of assumptions, months of crosswires, all collapsing at once. Emma's first instinct was analysis. Her mind immediately reviewed every conversation, every mistake, every clue she had missed. She couldn't believe the answer had been sitting in front of her the entire time. Sophie reacted differently. She laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. The entire situation was so unbelievably ridiculous that laughter became the only possible response. The reaction spread. Lucas started laughing too, then Ethan. Eventually, even Emma couldn't stop herself. Months of tension disappeared in seconds. The relief felt immediate, unexpected, and strangely comforting. Then came the question everyone had been avoiding. Would this change everything? For a moment, uncertainty lingered. Emma worried about the assumptions, the mistakes, the misunderstandings. Sophie worried about absolutely nothing. Her answer was simple. The feelings had arrived long before the truth. The truth didn't erase them. The more everyone thought about it, the clearer the answer became. Nobody had fallen in love with job titles, or family names, or business success. They had fallen in love with real people. People who had shown up during difficult moments. People who had made them laugh. People who had made their second chance feel real. The connections remained exactly the same. Only the information had changed. As the event continued, the atmosphere felt lighter than it had in months. No more confusion. No more mistaken identities. No more unanswered questions. For the first time, all four people were standing on the same page. And somehow, the truth hadn't broken anything. It had made everything stronger. But now that every misunderstanding had finally disappeared, a new challenge was waiting. For the first time, they would have to decide what happened next with complete honesty. Reward, relief, honesty, emotional payoff, acceptance, romantic security, curiosity for the next chapter. Now everyone faced the same question. Had they fallen in love because of a misunderstanding, or despite it? For the first time since the truth emerged, nobody could hide behind confusion. There were no mistaken identities left, no incorrect assumptions, no convenient misunderstandings, only choices, real choices. Emma approached the situation exactly the way she approached everything else in life. Carefully, methodically, she replayed months of memories in her mind. Every conversation, every gesture, every moment Ethan had shown up when she needed help, every small kindness she had almost overlooked. Her instinct was to analyze, to make sense of everything before moving forward. Meanwhile, Sophie reached a conclusion almost immediately. She loved Lucas. That was it. No investigation, no emotional audit, no complicated process. The answer felt obvious to her. In fact, Sophie became so impatient waiting for Emma to stop overthinking that she nearly created another disaster. One afternoon, she accidentally sent a voice message meant for Emma directly to Lucas. The message contained several minutes of enthusiastic commentary about how ridiculous everyone had been, including Lucas, especially Lucas. The moment she realized a mistake, she froze, then immediately considered moving to another country. Lucas listened to the entire message and laughed so hard he could barely call her back. The embarrassment lasted for hours. The laughter lasted even longer. Meanwhile, Ethan's approach with Emma remained exactly what she needed. No pressure, no demands, no dramatic declarations, just patience. The same patience that had drawn her toward him from the beginning. One evening, after helping her solve yet another work problem, he quietly reminded her of something important. She had trusted him long before she knew the truth. That realization stayed with her. Because it was true, the feelings had arrived first. The facts had arrived later. Across town, Sophie and Lucas continued being completely incapable of spending time together without something going wrong. During a weekend outing, Sophie managed to take a wrong turn into the wrong building and accidentally join a private birthday party for strangers. Instead of being upset, Lucas followed her inside. 20 minutes later, they were eating cake with people they had never met before. The situation made absolutely no sense. And yet, both were laughing the entire time. Back at the apartment, Emma and Sophie spent hours talking. Not about confusion, not about mistakes, about the future. The conversations felt different now. Lighter, more certain. The friendship that carried them through every challenge remained stronger than ever. When Emma finally admitted she was ready to stop analyzing and start trusting her heart, Sophie nearly celebrated as if a championship had been won. For once, Emma envied her friend's ability to leap before looking. And for once, Sophie appreciated Emma's ability to see things clearly. The answer had been obvious all along. They hadn't fallen for wealth, or status, or assumptions. They had fallen for people, real people, people who had made their second chance feel meaningful. The conversations that followed were honest, vulnerable, hopeful. Dreams were shared, promises were made, future plans began taking shape. For the first time, every relationship stood on complete truth. And somehow, the truth made everything feel even stronger. Reward, romantic fulfillment, trust, emotional intimacy, friendship, confidence in the future, healthy love, excitement for what comes next. Months later, life looked completely different. The city that once felt unfamiliar had become home. The apartment that began as a mountain of cardboard boxes now felt warm, lived in, and full of memories. Most importantly, the four people who had entered each other's lives through confusion had become something much more meaningful. Emma and Ethan were happier than ever. Their relationship had developed exactly the way Emma preferred. Steady, reliable, built on trust. She still carried planners, still organized everything, still prepared for situations 3 steps ahead. The difference was that now she no longer felt like she had to carry the future alone. Ethan had become her partner in every sense of the word. When problems appeared, they solved them together. When opportunities arrived, they planned for them together. For someone who had spent years feeling responsible for everything, the support felt almost unbelievable. Meanwhile, Sophie and Lucas remained wonderfully chaotic. Some things never changed. One weekend, they accidentally boarded the wrong ferry. Another time, they attended the wrong outdoor concert and somehow stayed for the entire performance anyway. Even their dates rarely followed the original plan. Yet every mistake somehow turned into another story, another memory, another reason to laugh. Lucas never seemed bothered by the chaos. In fact, he often looked like he was enjoying it more than anyone else. Their lives weren't perfect. They were simply happy. The strongest bond of all, however, remained the friendship between Emma and Sophie. Success had not changed it. Love had not changed it. Time had not changed it. If anything, the friendship had become stronger. They still celebrated every victory together, still helped each other through difficult days, still talked late into the night when life became complicated. The second chance they had received wasn't only romantic, it had transformed every part of their lives. Their careers continued thriving. Emma had earned another promotion. Sophie's creative projects were receiving recognition throughout the company. The future no longer felt uncertain. It felt exciting. One evening, both couples gathered for a family celebration at a waterfront restaurant overlooking the harbor. The atmosphere felt effortless, comfortable, peaceful, the kind of happiness neither woman had believed was possible a year earlier. As the sun disappeared behind the water, conversations drifted toward old memories. The moving truck, the elevator, the disastrous restaurant date, the wedding chaos, the endless confusion. Every story seemed funnier now than it felt at the time. Then someone raised a glass, a simple toast, followed by a single question. Imagine if you hadn't fallen for the wrong brothers. For a moment the table became silent. Then everyone burst into laughter, because they all knew the answer. The mistake that should have ruined everything had become the best thing that ever happened to them. Emma looked at Ethan. Sophie looked at Lucas. The brothers exchanged amused smiles. And the two best friends looked at each other the same way they had on the day they arrived in the city. Hopeful, grateful, ready for whatever came next. Because the second chance they had been searching for was never really about romance. It was about finding a life worth loving. And somehow, through a chain of misunderstandings, accidents, embarrassing moments, and impossible coincidences, they had found exactly that. Final emotional reward. Second chance. Friendship. Family. Healthy love. Personal growth. Belonging. Happiness. A future filled with hope.